And greetings, everybody. This is Laz with NBNN, and we are live here on NBNN with Chris Spears. How you doing today, Chris?
I am doing great.
Thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it here. Is we asked you to come today so we can get some burning answers to some burning questions, learn a little bit more about the man behind the scenes, and what gets done back there. And let's go starting off direct straight away. A little about yourself. I mean, we know you've been a game developer for over 20 years. I've done some research, and you've got
Mhm.
quite a few interesting games under your belt. And I didn't research your hobbies. So, do you have any hobbies? I know you're a video game enthusiast, all that.
I used to have hobbies and then I had a baby. So I've got a 15-month-old at home that pretty much has absorbed all my hobby time. I still do computer games. I'm a big live music fan, which Austin is a great town for being a live music guy.
Now, that was a
And
great show you guys saw the other day. I saw you post
oh,
of.
yeah, incredible show, an incredible experience overall. Uh, the Probably hiking, cooking, my dog, of course. I think people saw Mojito on quite a few earlier. Now Mojito is Maxine's best friend in the world. I used to have more hobbies, so like I used to brew beer, but not so much anymore. It kind
Uh,
of went to the wayside with the baby.
I was a home brewer myself, and that was something I'm really dying to see come in. And we have questions
Me
about
too.
that later, too. One of the reasons why I did invest and come in is because of stuff like that with the crafting. I made sure my pledge level was going to allow me to brew beer in the game and sell it and do all that fun stuff.
Awesome.
Okay, one thing most people don't know about you. Anything that you could say that most people wouldn't know about Chris
Uh,
Spears?
I'm sure there's tons, fortunately, that people don't know about me, but actually, I guess one of them is probably that I used to be a competitive racquetball player. Before I got this great body from sitting at a desk all day, I played racquetball and water polo. But I played racquetball and was attempting to be a professional racquetball player, which I did do well in tournaments. I did place nationally, but then I also had another knee surgery and then four more knee surgeries. And after five knee surgeries, I figured I probably ought to find a desk somewhere rather than
Yeah,
trying to
that
be a
that'll
professional
slow you
athlete.
down a
So,
little bit.
yeah.
That'll slow you down quite a bit. Now, of course, this is one of my questions. And I'm sure everybody wants to know because we know you wear several hats over there. But what does the technical director do when it comes to a video game?
Uh, there's so many roles in computer games where you can have a technical director at one company and they do something totally different in another one. To a large extent, I'm the technical manager. I kind of oversee all the programmers and sanity check technical ideas, make sure that there's nothing crazy going on. A lot of times we joke that my job is to be the interface between Star and Richard and the programmers because make sure that the crazy doesn't reach the programmers and stress them out.
Gotcha,
Uh,
gotcha.
but yeah, obviously on the project I do lots of stuff. I'm involved a lot with the design of things and an ideas guy. I unfortunately don't get to program as much as I want to on this project. I've probably less than 20% of my time now is spent programming. A lot of time
I was going to
spent
ask
watching
if you
other
were actually
things.
doing any of that, behind the scenes. I know you like to be hands on what's going on, testing stuff. We had a little conversation about that prior. That you're constantly going in and testing things as you guys are releasing them and building them.
Mm-hmm. No, and aside from testing, I do code some things, but a lot of the big picture stuff, unless you can dedicate full time to it, it's hard to keep up on all the systems that are going into the game and all the our code behind things. And I worry a little bit that if I dig too deep, I will probably just cause more damage than I help with. But when we have tough problems, I look into things. I also watch performance a lot, which I know is not hasn't improved in a few releases. We had a couple of releases where I spent a large chunk of my time working on it, but
And I know
other things
that's
fell to the side.
that's something that everybody keeps asking about, and I'll just touch on it real quick. We know that every time you guys add something and do something, you're not doing many performance enhancing to it until we have the core in, and that is
Mm-hmm.
that is done for a reason, of course. Um, just so everybody knows that.
Oh yeah, well that's most mini scenes will run well, but the ones that don't run well right now are the ones that people are in the most, which is obviously cities where there's tons of decorations. There's just a lot of things that need to. We've still got a long list of performance optimizations to be done. Things like I know everybody wants mini lights and mini decorations and all that stuff, but that all gets it all builds up on performance. We've got a lot of things planned that will hopefully improve those things going forward.
Right. Yeah, they become lag sinks basically. It's
Yeah.
keeping people there. Big question, and of course everybody knows that with the sandbox, everybody is actually part of the server. But
hmm
how many servers does the game actually run on? And how many will probably be needed when we go live? Is there an anticipated number here?
Uh, so modern servers and our server included work on kind of a different system than they used to work in the old days. Because in the old days, it was like you plan your shard, and here's how many boxes you have, and you know exactly what the numbers are and how many people you can support. We actually have a system that clusters, so we can just add another game server whenever we need to.
Gotcha.
Uh,
Yeah, with the
we
advent
can,
of technology.
yeah, and we can run on a single box if we want to, just run all the different server components. But for the live box, not QA, but for live, we're running on, I think there's 4 boxes right now, which we try to keep the boxes separate. There's some issues that will only come up when you add in that tiny latency between the boxes. If you have everything running local, there's race conditions and other things that, like, it may work fine if you have everything running local on the same box, but as soon as you split them off, that extra latency between the boxes breaks things. So we keep them all split up. We also do that because for a while we actually had an extra box that was being used that we wanted to make sure we could just add more game servers. So we quietly did that during one of the releases, is add a few more game server boxes to make sure that people were being distributed between the two. Because then you log in through the front end, and then different people go to different machines
Right,
and making
right.
sure all that stuff worked. But we pulled that back down. We've got so right now we just have the master server that everybody logs in through. We have the game server that handles all the rooms and game logic. That's one of the ones that's really easy just to add more of and split it out. We have a log metric server that is all the data goes to. That's for those who are tech people. It's an ELK stack, ELK, which is Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana. We just switched over to 4.0 for those who really want to look into it. But anyways, all logs go to that, and so we can pretty much go to that and just, it's kind of a dump everybody's information for what their machine is doing, problems they're having, exceptions into that thing, and we can go search it. And then there's one final machine that is for Mongo DB, which is the database we're using. One of the
Right.
big challenges is with online games is if you're going to cluster, it's not all going to be just on one box. You have to have some way that's like, here's a shared data repository for everything. MongoDB is what we use, and it also clusters, and it's great.
I think that'll be more than sufficient for the person who submitted that question. Again, thinking the old school, used to be different physical boxes. Today's
Yeah,
technology has changed quite a bit with all that.
and we can actually add more boxes on the fly if we want to. Uh, and again, the current setup we have with the boxes we have will probably, I think we've looked at it, and it'll handle about 5,000 people with the current setup we have. That number will probably go down as we add some more server logic testing things, but for the time being, it scales really well.
Oh, very good, very good. I think that's more than sufficient to answer that. And the person who asked that's probably scratching their head going, okay, I don't know about that. Again, another submitted question. I left the question as it was because I too read the same article. That when you guys decided to put this game out and sell player-owned towns, you guys only spec'd 20 or so to sell, and of course it surprised you guys. It surprised the player base that we got a final count. I believe we're at 202 now. Is that the final count?
It's somewhere just north of 200. I forget what the exact number is. I think it might have grown a little bit from that, like maybe 211 or something.
And with all that, um, how are you guys handling the large number of player-owned towns?
Well, just for some background on what we were originally thinking is we wanted, we knew we had to put a bunch of towns into the game that we were going to have to make. And the idea was thrown around why don't we make it so players can buy the towns and effectively sponsor us creating the town, and then they can take part in the creation for it. So when we originally priced them and the prices that are in there now, we tried to price them instead of as a profit center. We tried to price these as how much money will it actually cost us to make it. So they're kind of a neutral cost. I mean, it pays somebody's salary, but they're working on the player-owned town for the full amount.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Uh, so so we were a little shocked with how popular they were, and I think we've already made them a little more expensive, and I think we'll probably continue to make them, try to discourage more because with 200 towns now, we've got plenty of player housing, plenty of room for people. The upside is that now there will be more player housing available for people once they get into the game, and there won't be as tight a crunch for housing. Of course, there'll always still be the popular spots and the non-popular spots.
Of
So.
course, of course. Now, of course, as we go into the different releases, we're going to see different continents, and will more towns be sold as those
Uh,
continents open? I would assume.
yeah, more towns will be sold. We'll probably open up the spigot again once we get our head around how all this stuff is going in. Some things we're doing to speed up creation of the town is we've got a big feature that may make R20. That is actually, it will allow players to dynamically build their own town. So we will basically be building a scene that is just kind of a large generic type scene. It may look like if you imagined Pax Lair or Owl's Head or something, but just no buildings whatsoever, no decorations. And then we leave it up to the town owner to go and place lots. So they will be able to go and place entire lots just like you would place a decoration in a house.
Right. Now,
And when they place it, it'll actually clear out the trees and the grass and rocks and all that type of stuff and make it. It'll have to be on a flat spot to begin with, but it'll go and pull out all the grass and everything and make it a clear lot for them. Then they will also be able to go and place their own decorations, and we'll probably give people a handful of decorations that come with it. I think Star might have announced some of that stuff, but then they
we
can go decorate.
I know we had heard that was something that you guys were toying with.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really, and I know I didn't. I know a lot of people who submitted questions and stuff. Never thought we might even actually see that. I know this is something that you guys love the idea of, and we love the idea of, because if you can just give the players a blank slate for their town,
Yeah,
they can have at it and make it really, really custom.
yeah, and I think the plan right now. We'll see how the next release and release after that pan out. Again, it may be in as early as R20 is this release. It's a little bit of a stretch goal for this release, but I think something will probably be there so we can at least start trying it out. But we'll probably let people choose. Not probably. We'll definitely let people choose if we add that system. You can choose whether we make your town or you make your own town. But yeah,
Okay.
I expect most people would just want to go make their own town and be able to go. It's
I
again, it's
I would think that would be the popular option. I know definitely as somebody who owns a couple towns,
mhm,
that if you guys give me a blank slate, I'd be more than happy to go ahead and sit there and
yeah,
tinker with it and play with it and get it all out and do what I want to do and go. I don't like that. I can change it around. I'm not stuck with it once you guys make it and put it on the map. And that leads into, of course, the next question, which is, we've been seeing one town a month just recently
mhm.
coming into the game. Release 20, we've been told that there's a new island um, format coming in. If that's the way if it was written correctly, we're going to see an island coming in, an island template.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Hutch is going to have that wrapped up for this release. Uh, but yeah, that's what we've been doing right now is we're trying to make individual biome templates that we can reuse, and then when we get many of these done, we'll probably go back and players will change them out a little bit for each player.
Gotcha, gotcha.
But yeah, the island should be done for this release, and players can look at it. I think we had a poll up, or we had a questionnaire for what people want for the towns, and I think island was actually the most popular town type. So.
It would make sense, seeing as if most of the towns are also holdfasts.
Mhm.
The sheer number of those. would make for great little island groups anywhere
Oh yeah.
anywhere there's water. And of course, with the number of towns, one of the questions submitted of on that line was, will all the 200 plus be in by release time? And let me before you answer that, with the information you just gave me, I can see that actually blowing up and having it all done way before release if we actually get a system like that in. But in general, the question is, do we expect to see all these towns in by the release?
Uh, so the honest answer I think we've given people is we hope so. I'm still optimistic. I think Star is reluctant to commit to them all being in. There's a little bit of a time factor because as we get to the actual point of putting the towns into the map, we don't want to. It can't just be everybody say place my town here because then we may have too big a cluster. So we may have to push people's towns around. So we may have some choosing order for how they go in. But assuming the system works out as we expect it with this dynamic town thing, that will greatly simplify. And I'm 95% sure that all of those towns would get in for release. The only ones that might not make it is if we have some bigger custom towns that go in at some point.
And
But most likely they'll all be in.
just a couple of comments from Avidos out there. He's saying, real cool, Chris. Drake Gatus is saying he wasn't expecting dynamic lot placement this soon. And of course, none of us were expecting to hear that today, I'm sure. Even at tomorrow's post mortem, I don't think anybody was thinking about that. But that's really great information, of course.
Yeah. And
And go ahead.
the current state on it is kind of the joke I keep making with the person working on it is within about a day they got it to, and that's Burning Toad is actually working on it. If you guys want to go pester him,
We always love to pester him.
he got it to about 90% of the functionality in about the first day.
Very nice.
Unfortunately, the last 10% of any of these tasks, actually making it work, actually making it scale, actually making it so everything is usually 90% of the work. So you get 90% of the work done in 10% of the time, and 10% of
Exactly.
the work done in 90.
And then you spend the next 6 months trying to get the bugs out of the rest of the
Yeah,
10%.
exactly. And
Gotcha.
especially in this type of situation where it's very dynamic, it's very, players have repeatedly proven us to not be great testers. Especially, I like as we see the decorations where I've seen people with chessboards or chessboards way up above their house, floating in the sky, and all of them having parties up on those things. I mean,
I tell you,
we haven't been able to
people
reproduce
love
those.
their parties here. They love rooftop parties. They love anything they can do with stacking, as you've seen, I'm sure. Examples
Oh,
of, when you tell us it can't be done, the first thing they do out is go out and try and break it. And of course, that's what this is all about right now, is giving it
oh
to
yeah.
us so that we can see what can be broken, what can't be broken, so that by the time we get to release, it's nice, clean, it's fixed, it's polished,
Mhm.
and it's what it will be.
Yeah.
Now, you touched on this earlier with the towns and all that, but in-game lots, big question on a lot of people's minds. There was a debate that started, and I'm going to tell you there's two schools of thought here.
Hmm.
And this started out as something one developer said, and then somebody took and started another post and speculated on it, and that blew up and ran. And I don't know how close you follow all the chatter in the forums, but one was a lottery system
Hmm.
that had to do with housing. And after reading all the speculation, my personal determination was that just doesn't seem like it would work. You would have to have in-game plots available at all times. New guy comes into the game. His goal is to come into the game and forage for money and build himself a house, an empire, or whatever. And if the lots were restricted, I said that shouldn't be or wouldn't be some way they would go. So the question, of course, is how are they going to be made available? Will they be freely available for purchase with gold and through the add-on store, or will they be limited in some way to avoid a land rush?
So this is one of those. It's probably good that Star is not in on the conversation because he'd be cringing, telling me not to say
don't
anything,
don't
and
lawyer
say,
me,
and
bro.
be saying, "Next question." Look, yeah, don't worry. Uh,
And we will be
so
talking to
I'm.
Star next week, so he will have a chance to
Oh,
uh,
awesome.
do that. Yeah, I've got him booked for next Thursday. I still have to nail Richard down. Richard's been We know he's traveling, but anyway, let's
Yeah,
not
he's
get off
traveling
track.
right now. He's doing his once a year family vacation. He
Is
was
he?
actually in Austin for months straight, and then
He's
is
in
now
Paris
over
still, I believe.
he's in Paris,
Yes.
uh, not vacationing. This is actually that's where his wife's family is.
Right, right. And I tried to start off the month for his birthday bash with him, but again, with the Paris trip coming up, just things didn't work out there. But anyway,
So I can tell you, as the technical guy and sort of the design guy for a lot of this stuff, but not. I'm not the guy thing that I don't do that Star does do. Is he's Star is much more into the community and keeping people happy and making sure we're not telling people stuff we're not 100% sure of just because, again, don't lawyer me, bro. But my expectation of how things work is that we know there's going to be the land rush that is kind of going to be gated by when you purchased and what you purchased,
yes,
how much.
and
So there's that initial land rush. And while that is going on, we expect that to take at least a couple weeks. So
to
we can give
sort
people,
everybody out
yeah,
and give everybody
that,
time to log into their accounts. The
yeah.
way, yeah, exactly.
We
Okay.
don't want to make it like you got a 5 minute window, go, because
That
the
doesn't work. People
insanity.
have real lives. Yeah, we all get that. And
So, so we'll have that initial land rush of people who bought lots and pledged during Kickstarter and all those different. I think Stars made those rules pretty clear. But during that time, we aren't going to, most likely, are not going to allow people to buy lots with in-game gold until those people get their lots. Because if not, then it's like, okay, well, great. Now people are not even getting the best choice of lots as we promised. We're trying to live up to the promises of
gotcha.
Kickstarter and all the stuff the Stars had.
And that
As
would
soon
make
as that
sense.
land rush is done in the first couple of weeks, though, we will open up the lots for sale. And at this point, we still don't know. We may do a test. It's not the next quarter, but it may be the final quarter of the year that we may start doing a test for how a better system for getting those out there. I threw out a couple ideas, but the bidding and the lottery system and some other stuff.
The lottery system was what had everybody going, and somebody took and ran with that, and it went ballistic. And I'm like, I just don't see it. Now, a big question of mine. I know I didn't add that, but right on the subject. Will housing be sold for cash in the add-on store once we go live? Still, will people still be able to purchase that, or do we not know that yet?
I don't think we've fully decided. I think rents, like actual rent, will start up on houses maybe R21, R22 sometime fairly soon. So
All
if
right.
you buy your house in game, there's an ongoing rent where you still have to pay. You buy the lot, you buy the house and lot, but then you have to pay a rent per month to the city.
Well, the ones you buy in the add-on store are not rent-free either. That you will pay rent on
Ah,
those.
yeah. So there's ones you buy in the add-on store that are not rent free. I'm not sure if those will continue. Again, we're still talking about what to do with the pledges, and if those continue, I'm sure there will still be some way to buy a rent-free house for those people who don't want to have to think about maintenance, who don't want to have to worry about paying a monthly upkeep.
And that's something I hadn't thought about, but since you touched on it real quick, pledges. When
Mm-hmm.
when we go live, are pledges still going to be a thing? Are people still going to be able to buy a Duke pledge or Lord of the Manor, or is that just for us early adapters? And when it goes to the big box stores, it's just going to be a game you can buy off the shelf, or do we not know that either yet?
Yeah, that's a hot topic internally, and just in terms of what the best option is, I think we're leaning towards going to change what the pledges are if we keep them around.
Gotcha.
Hopefully, we'll have some announcements on that pretty soon. But there's going to definitely be some changes to the pledges. I think we're going to start ending some of these things that we really intended to be exclusive things for the initial backers. We've already started removing some items from the store, but there'll probably be a few more things that come up here in the next. I know about one announcement we're going to make this Friday that'll probably get people realizing that, yeah, we are going to pull some stuff when we go live. There's not going to be as many options for players.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
But how the pledge stuff survive, we'll probably still have something in there. But I can't even tell you for sure
Fair
how that's going
enough.
to
I
work.
mean, again, it just you touched on it, and I says, I didn't even think
Uh-huh.
to throw that in there. And again, that's why I like to keep these informal, so that when we're talking and you know talking on an idea, something comes up, it's like, oh yeah, let's just explore that for a minute.
Yeah, on the lots being sold in game, just go back on that since I know that's probably a hot topic. The plan, we've got to come up with some way that we can stagger how many lots can be purchased over a given time. We don't want to have it the first week, every single lot in the entire game is
Right,
filled.
right.
That'll probably be less of a problem. We'll be able to sell put more on vendors in the game, uh, thanks to all the player towns. But we can't guarantee occupation in player towns because everybody may be exclusive. They may not want you in your or in their town. You have to go
Right.
make friends with the town owner unless they're a public town. So, but yeah, we will be limiting how they're sold in game, but we're not going to limit it that much. We just don't want it to be like, hey, the first week every single lot in the entire game is taken.
It's gone, which I was personally expecting within the first month that that would happen because, of course, when we
Yeah.
go live, the game is going to be available for the general public, and we don't
Hmm.
know if we're going to get 300,000 or 3 million people jumping on this. So it's really hard to gauge that. Um, okay, moving on, and we're talking about towns, talking about that. Probably been answered before, but can we confirm that we have one template and three biomes and not three templates? How is that being viewed over there at Portalarium?
I'm trying to remember. I think there's more than three biomes, but yeah, right now we're trying to get the first pass on one template for each biome. So a swamp, an island, uh, plains, desert, and
Right
I
now,
forget
right
what the
now we
other
have a
island.
swamp, a forest, and a desert,
Yeah,
based on the PAX layer template, the way we understand it.
I think there's also like a frozen tundra one that I've seen that was a version. It
We
very
haven't
much
seen
looks
it
like.
yet.
Yeah, you haven't. I have,
Yes.
but there's going to be some other ones, and I mean the player-owned town stuff. Obviously we want the game to be as interesting as possible, so we will continue making those over time. But the initial plan is to get the first one template, multiple biomes, so everybody can see like here's what the winter version looks like, or the
Right, right.
Arctic version looks like. Here's the island version, and we will almost certainly continue making more after that.
Well, we had a hot topic. Somebody was talking in chat, and I got into it. And somebody says, "Well, you got X amount of templates to choose from," and of course, I says, "No, we have one template with X amount of biomes." And the way it's
Yep.
listed in the add-on store is a little misleading, and I could see where that led to the conversation go. And of course, we all went, "Yeah, it's just a little too petty to be arguing with," but it was a question that somebody said, came up with, and I decided to include that just to find out. Now,
And I'm hoping we can also expand all those options as well. If the dynamic placement of everything, we basically turn that over to the player. If that all
that's a
works
game
out as well
changer.
as I hope, I hope that will open up more options for that as well, so we can have more and more stuff.
Now, this one is mine, and I've been curious to ask this question. Um, we've got them coming in the overland encounters, dragons, all this stuff. Now, I've seen countless videos out there from 3 months in to 6, 8 months in where we saw dragons flying, we saw caravans on the roads, we saw animals running around
Yep.
in the fields. Um, what's keeping us from actually having that like that, even just as a teaser game right now, or is it the development itself of the systems that's keeping that held? You know,
Yeah, so that is still going to happen. That's still on the plan. The system has been there obviously forever. The problem we have is the same problem we have right now with random encounters. Is we've got the thing we're tightest on the project is level builders. So
okay,
making new maps is right now is huge, and we're trying to hire like mad on getting some more level builders in here. We've had picked up a few exceptionally talented guys like Abe and a few others. But we've got a couple jobs Rex out for those. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because the thing blocking those is not the tech or the plan for how things work on the overworld. It will work pretty much what you saw in the Kickstarter videos and in the demos of it. That wasn't just smoke and mirrors. The problem is we don't have good content to go in there, so we can have a
okay, I
wagon that
understand.
shows up, and you can go to the wagon, but then, okay, now what do we do? Do we just show you, here's another blank plain scene with a
Here's
gypsy
another bunch
wagon
of
in it?
wolves running around like the random encounter. You want to make something.
Yeah, so that's also why I've been each release I've turned down the frequency of overland random encounters, just because I feel right now they're just an annoyance until we
And
actually
I
have some
believe that's a
interesting
general
content.
consensus. Most
Yeah.
people just turn around and run right out of them because they're on their way someplace. They were doing
Yeah.
something and they get dragged into this and they're like, hold on a second, I got dragged into an encounter, let me get out of here.
Yeah,
And
until those actually have meaningful, we have lots of plans for how to make those meaningful encounters, but they all involve building levels that, it's not just here's an open space, let me drop three bears around you or three wolves or whatever. That's why if you see random encounters occurring less and less, that's why. In the future, those will be turned up, but not until we actually have something interesting. Same thing with the overland encounters for wandering creatures and gypsy wagons and bandits and those type things. Is until we actually have the scenes made for those that will make it interesting. You're not going to see them in game. And right now, most of the time from the scene builders is being spent making story-based stuff. Uh, Cities, player-owned towns,
yeah, fair
and things
enough.
that
Yeah.
are that are critical path type things that we need. So hopefully we will get a couple more of those guys out. I think we are about to extend an offer to at least one person, uh, but yeah, hopefully we'll get a few more level builders in here and we can start spreading a little bit because right now we're spread a little thin on level building.
So, like I was observing, is basically those systems are actually there and in place and functional. It's
Yep.
just what you guys decide to insert in there is what's and
Yeah.
you want it to be something that's worthwhile for us to go into and want to fight,
Yeah.
compared to turn around and run out and go, I don't want to be bothered with this.
We we could throw stuff in there right now, but it would honestly just piss people off as much as the overland random encounters do right now.
Exactly. And I got to say, one of the big consensuses I found from the community is that when I ask people about things that are coming in, what they want to see, everybody goes, we don't want them to rush because if we ask them to give us something, we're going to get something that's just that. They're going to give it to us to placate us, and they're not going to do due diligence in giving us what can possibly be the bigger, greater thing. So most of the player base is in agreement that they're willing to sit back and wait for exactly this reason, which is what you guys are doing. That's really great to hear.
Yeah. Well, and every time we hire a designer, that means that each release will get between, it depends on the scene, obviously, but, 2 to 4 or 6 scenes that are actually interesting. So, again, we're trying to hire a number of designers here so we can get to the point where we're dumping out 12 scenes a release or so.
Now, I got this question for you, and of course we've already touched on it a bit. What does it take to add new items into the game? And as you were telling me here just a few minutes ago with the random placement of the towns, what he was able to finish in 90% of it in one sitting, the other 10% takes forever. Um, how hard is it, coding versus man hours, to add new decorative items, add new scenes? You know, not too crazy, just in general. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, just across the board, generally adding items like decorations. If we want to add a chair, it honestly is probably 10 minutes work. If we have a 3D model, we can take that and hook it up. We got to hook up the point, tied into the data so your character knows how to sit on the chair. We've got to create an icon for it. We've got to create prefabs for it so people, how it's crafted. We've got to have that information. We've got to have like the price value on it. Uh, so the danger with that is it's really easy to add more decorations to the game. So I'm sure everybody's saying, well, go to Turbo Squid, buy 50 items a day and slam them into the game so we can get more. The danger comes from the bloat that we are afraid to expand on already. We already have a lot of
gotcha.
bloat in there. And that if you have 50 items that you just went from to Turbo Squid or whatever asset store and bought the items, because obviously there's a lot of models of chairs and tables and pictures and all that type of stuff. But that ends up meaning that they each have their own set of unique textures and unique data that goes along with them rather than shared. And it ends up, hey, guess what? If we have 1,000 decorations, you go to a house with 1,000 decorations, each one of those probably has 4 textures or 3 textures on it.
Gotcha.
And yeah, so it ends up blowing up memory, and we're trying to keep a lid on that and improve some of the other stuff before. There's actually some features that just went into the newest version of Unity that we're just about to move to 5.1 and actually probably move to 5.2 shortly that make the texture compression. We can cut the texture sizes down to about a third. So we'll
Good,
be able to
good.
get some more stuff in there. Actually, in the short term, it'll mean that memory usage hopefully will drop for people. But
And that's a big concern, of course, in the long haul.
in terms of scenes, we actually just, I think last week, kicked off a little scene builders group uh, with Artemis and a number of other people who had been wanting to build scenes for us forever. So we're going to see how that goes. But in terms of what goes into the scenes, they can take anywhere from like a small, the dungeons, the sewers that are in there that were under Arteris, Soul Town, and Solania, I think, were actually made by me as an experiment to see how quickly things could be put together and try to improve uh, map building practices. That's actually, in terms of me being the tech director, one of the things I try to do is sit down and do other people's jobs for an amount of time, because in doing that hopefully I can find ways to improve their productivity. So
Gotcha.
that was actually why I made those sewers. Hopefully we'll get another. I'm not sure how many, but we should get a number in that's being made by this group. But I made those in about a day a piece, a day of total time a piece. So those are easy to slam in. When you get into bigger scenes like you know, just a random woods scene, those can take more like a week to 2 weeks. When you're looking at a town like an Owl's Head or Soul Town, or Sultan, sorry. I have to admit that it's stand up every day when anyone's working on Soul Town. Usually someone will say Sultan, and then everybody in the stand up will go Soul
That's
Town.
what everybody I know
And
calls it, Soul
and
Town.
that's and then Richard cringes and says he's going to change the name and take the W out of it. And
Is another question. Again, this wasn't in there, but on the topic of towns, I remember reading that some of the towns that, like Soul Town on the map, are going to be replaced with player-owned towns. Is that still something that's in the plans, or are
now
we
I
going to
don't.
leave all those all on the map the way
Yeah,
they are?
we're going to have a fair number of NPC towns in the game. Uh, just because we can't force everybody to live in player-owned towns. We want to have some that are there. There's a number, I forget exactly how many, but there's about 20 towns that are specifically called out in the story Bible that have to be built that are NPC towns. So I can guarantee at least 20 to 30 of
Gotcha,
towns will be
gotcha.
completely non-player-owned towns. But I expect there to actually be more than that. But no, those the towns that are there, and we'll also probably give at least some amount of wide berth to those towns, so if there's not player towns clustered around them.
Right, right. And then crafting again.
Mhm.
Will we be able to craft everything that is in game? There's been talk of that every item in game at one point might become fully craftable. Is that something that we're actually going to see as a reality? We were just
Uh,
talking about all the different items just a moment ago.
yeah, probably. Always going to be a few items that will not be craftable. There's some trophy things like if you do a quest and you get something that's a decoration you can put in your house. We don't want to make those quest items craftable.
Yeah, I mean that's
Obviously, there's going to be
understandable.
yeah. So then there's going to be some rewards like some stuff with pledges that players will not be able to craft. Many of the things with that stuff or with those like purchased items, there will be some version of it. It just may be different or smaller or somewhat different than the one that you would actually buy, but you'll be able to craft most of those
Like the
things.
difference between the pledge radio and the radio that's now in the
Yeah,
add-on store. Right.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Big question. Double experience. Will it continue, and for how long?
So it will definitely continue through, and for those who don't know how that's working, each release, at the start of the release, you get a pool of experience that is how many experience you had last release. It only matters during wipes. We obviously don't wipe every release, only about every third release. So if you got to 500,000 experience points in the previous release and we do a wipe, you have what we call like a rested pool of experience that is, every experience point you earn, you get an extra one out of this pool. So the result is it gives you double experience for the whole time you're adventuring until you get back to the point that you're at for the previous release. which is to again encourage people. We don't want people to be, I worked all that time, I got wiped, and now I'm done. I'm not going to go back and play again because it's too hard to. So we try
Well,
to make that a little less painful.
I just never really, and it's this again a personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
People find me, and I sit around Owl's Head day in and day out. I've sort of made a name for myself. People know where I sit, and it's become sort of a joke because oh yeah, there's Laz's chair over there. Um, but I just didn't understand going and doing it. I mean, every time we have a wipe and we got new stuff, I like to go out and test these things, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a need to go up to level 70 where I was every time, and I just don't understand those people personally. Um, but
Well, that
it's understandable why you guys do it for the testing, of course.
yeah, and we've, I mean, the plan from day one is that this is not going to be a grinding game where you have to go and grind. Some of that we have in there, uh, just that levels are not as critical as they are in other games. Are really more levels give you the ability to have breadth of skills rather than just being a number that gets bigger and bigger and bigger, meaning you're more powerful. There's a little bit of advancement like hit points and focus and that type of stuff, but levels are not as critical as in other games. We're actually going to make that a little less important even now going into R20. That we're going to be splitting off some of the PvP and PvE math. So if you attack a player, level is even less important than it is now. And the PvP to level the PvP playing field a little bit, so we don't have to worry about level 50 gets slaughtered by level 80. Usually, that's never been the goal. It's always
Right. The
been to
goal's always been that a
skill.
couple low level players can go beat up on
Absolutely.
something huge, so it doesn't discourage them from going out and doing adventuring and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, in our 20, we're going to be adding at least a few scenes that are much more difficult right now. The max creatures in the game were kind of set up to be a challenge for someone in the 35 level 35 range. And of course, we've got people are going out in groups of five with five level 50 or level 70 people, and it's just not challenging. So there's not much challenging PvE content. We're going to try to fix
Gotcha.
that for R20. Uh, at least one thing that we will almost certainly do is going to be a new challenge dungeon. I think the old one's called like Chillblains Challenge Dungeon or something like that. There will be a new one in there that is actually a challenge, whereas the one right now, I know a lot of people solo it.
Well, there's a lot of us try and solo it. A lot of us get stuck in there a lot. I don't know if you guys ever hear about that, but there are still a few things in there that just
Mhm.
cause it not to function, keeping people out of it. Um, and I'm not even going to go there because that's not anything we want to go into right now. Back to crafting.
Oh,
Um,
I did have one more thing on the experience. Something that I've proposed uh, that will be hopefully going in pretty quick and will likely be in the final game is just a rested experience concept. So every day when you log in, that rested experience number right now, that's how many experience points you got last release. Uh, but that's going to move to be a more of a rested experience. So every day when you log in, you'll get a boost to that experience. It's about maybe a tenth of a level.
Interesting.
So yeah, this is for guys like you who log in. You may log in 7 days a week, but you may only go adventure one day a week.
And that's
So you'll
that's
get a
about
lot of
average. You're right.
experience. You'll, you'll
Yeah.
get a lot of experience piled up, so that when you do go expend or adventure now, it's a much quicker experience.
I've come to the
Again,
conclusion that I can live in Owl's Head my whole existence in the game, never leave there, and make money, and live a nice, peaceful existence as a townie and a crafter. And I've looked at all the other options, but it's nice to know that if a player just never wants to leave a town, never wants to go out, it's a little harder to reach those levels, but you could feasibly live a whole life as a townie. Um,
yeah. Well, that's another thing is right now there's not enough story for people to play through, but as we get closer and closer and we get more level builders in here, there's going to be more story-driven content and linear content, and then there'll actually be some content that we start holding back that the players won't get to see until live, or we will only open up to a smaller group. But I expect even people who are just townies like yourself, some of them will want to go and do some of the storyline and some of
oh
the
yeah.
quest stuff
Oh, trust
once
me,
patch
I
updates
plan
start.
on doing every single quest throughout the game as well. But people ask me why don't you PvP? It's just not me. Um, Like we were talking earlier, I said somebody told me I'll be doing this 3 months ago. 6 months ago, I told them they'd be crazy because I'm just the average role player. I like to get in, you know, get into my game, get in depth, play my character. And somebody may say, "Hey, there's something going on out here. We need people." And sure, I'm gonna, join in the fight and champion the cause. And even if I die, I went out and made a valiant effort. But for the most part, yeah, I mean, I don't need to be out there looking for a fight, fighting. If I want to adventure, I'd
Mhm.
venture on my schedule. And if I want to sit there in town and watch the pretty girls walk by, that's also my choice and something I do quite often. Okay, books just came in.
Mhm.
One of my favorites. A lot of us are really loving what's going on with books. I actually had the distinct pleasure of finishing my very first book the other day when Richard popped
Awesome.
in, standing right next to me, and says, "What you doing?" And I says, "Well, I just finished printing a book," and I handed him the first copy off the presses of my book.
Nice.
And, oh, it was. I actually caught it on video too, which was a plus. um, and then, of course, he's reading the book and he goes, "Ooh, color! I didn't know we had that." And I understand he doesn't know every little detail that gets put in there. I'm sure, you know, even you know the guys who wrote it may not have realized that they were going to be able to put coding in there. But with the advent of books, they're becoming very popular. Um,
Mhm.
are we going to expand on the formatting and writing of those? I mean, I know it's a real new item, and we may be delving into something that we don't have answers to yet. But it's really, really popular, and I got to say, there's literally thousands and thousands. I buy them by 500 lots. We're putting these things out there like crazy.
Yeah, I forget. Did the printing press make it in for R19?
The press is in, but it's not functional. You can place it,
Okay. Yeah,
and we don't.
it's functional now, so that'll help for people who want to print multiple copies. Another thing for books is that all books can be used as decorations now.
Yes, we've seen
So
quite a few amazing examples of that.
yeah, so any book can be used as a decoration now, player-written books included. So you can have a bookshelf that is actually. So the printing press will let you do. I think the way it works is you can put up to 25 blank books in, and it'll print 25 copies at a time.
Interesting,
So you don't have to
interesting.
cut and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste. Open the file over and over and over again. So you'll be able to print up. If you want to put together a book or a guild wants a book, they can say, "Hey, here's our guild hand rules."
And that's
Then
what a
you can
lot of
print up.
people are doing. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, you can print
Um,
up 100 copies. So if you're like, "Here's the rules for Pax Lair for how we expect people to behave."
and we don't know whether anybody's brought it to the attention. When you go
Mm-hmm.
to the bookseller and you buy your books, he's got them in stacks of 50. When you purchase them, all of a sudden you now have 50 loose books in your backpack. And people are going, what's the story with that? Is there a reason behind that?
I think that's a bug, but it was one of those where it's not fatal, so we just didn't worry about it too much.
Gotcha, gotcha.
We'll get it fixed. I expect it'll be fixed in the next release. Yeah,
And
I think that's just how the books are created. That really every book is created as a unique snowflake right now. But hopefully we can make blank books a different type until you've actually written them. It's a different type of book. But
and then that brings me. I'm going to skip forward a little bit to the backpacks.
actually, there's more stuff on books that I wanted to mention.
Oh yeah, please,
I,
please.
I know this will come as no shock to anybody watching this, but Richard is a huge, huge fan of player created books and books in game in general as a, not just for players writing stuff, but so we can tell stories as well. So we can get some depth into it without having to, you know, leaving books and around for quest stuff. Uh, we want to get more formatting in. We put in kind of the what we can do easily and quickly. That'll probably be something we come back and touch on later. There's just in terms of in-game editing, there's not an easy way. It's a much, much larger task than what we have in there right now. So it may make 1.0 release, uh, but it'll all depend on how much Richard pushes on it. And he pushes on a lot of stuff, so he's
We,
so
we,
we
we
will
know
get
he's
better
vocal
eventually.
about the things he wants.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going to jump ahead here just to the backpacks. Sort of on the same topic. You put an
Mhm.
extra backpack in your main backpack, and you go to put items in it. So, like, say, and I'll give you a good example: the BMC crafting fair. When they hold
Mhm.
the crafting fair, they want to be able to give people a backpack full of ingredients that go here and take this over to this station. You can learn how to craft this item. The problem lies in that you can't move a container with items in it at
Yeah,
this point. Um, and it's something that's troublesome because everybody goes, this has been a while. We need to, see if we can address this. So, of course, one of the things that came up, and I figured, well, we had you. I mean, is this something that um, is a known issue you guys are working on? Is it on the list of fixes?
it's a known issue. Uh, but what we found is the number of people using the bags is not that great, so we've had it deprioritized for a while.
Okay.
It's a known bug, and we will get to it eventually. But yeah, that it's just a matter of how things were set up. And the backpack mode gets a little less love. The bag mode gets a little less love than the list mode. Just even some of the old players who grew up on Ultima uh, found that they preferred the list mode as being less tedious and
Yeah.
spoils you.
I,
So
I'm one of them.
yeah,
I like the list mode personally. I'm not a fan of backpack mode because one of the things I did find was you couldn't use multiple backpacks. Um,
yeah,
and
yeah, and
I'll be
some of it is
honest,
just because of the
I'm not
bugs.
a fan of the new graphic. The graphic that is in there. The list mode is just so much easier, especially
Yeah,
when I want to drag 30 items over. I highlight them and just go boom, and you don't have to be worried about moving the individual items.
yeah, but there's other reasons. Even if you aren't someone who uses bag mode, just being able to do things like, okay, we've got a guild chest, and we're going to put like 20 starter kits for new guild members in there, and each one the starter kit contains a bunch of stuff, rather than having people go to a chest and like grab one of each item. It's like
Right, right.
it'd be so much nicer to be able to just go to or a wedding party of here. Let me give you your
And here's
bag
your
that
wedding
has
gift. Yeah,
yeah,
there you go.
your rice and your confetti or whatever, your fireworks, whatever things you want to have in there for people to use during the wedding, or a special outfit if you want to have like, hey, here's the bags for everybody coming to it, so you can put on a suit or whatever.
Now we were
So,
talking about crafting,
mhm,
and these are hot topics. You and I were talking about brewing earlier, um, and I'm gonna just because both of these seem to really be on the same thing: crafting and animals.
mhm.
Are we gonna be able to get milk from cows? The big point in the game is there's one cow, and there are loads and loads and loads of cheese out there, and we're wondering how this one cow in the game produces all the milk for that cheese. Um,
So I absolutely with you. I mean, I still have the dream of the. I dream of having a chicken house on my own property, but unfortunately, I'm in an HOA that won't let us have a chicken house.
yeah,
But yeah, so I would at least love to have a chicken house in game, so I can go out and like log in daily. And one of those daily bonuses I get when I log in is I can go check the chicken house and see how many eggs I got. I can go milk the cow and get the daily cow milk. Uh, so that is on the list of things we want. We will definitely get some elements of that type in, like for instance, being able to plant stuff and grow stuff so you can harvest fruit and that type stuff if you want to put fruit trees on your
right, right.
property. I don't know that that's going to make initial release, but I mean, as with everything, we try to be super open on all parts of our
No,
development. I think that's
understandable.
one of the things.
Understandable is
Yeah.
one of the big questions is, basically, can are we going to be able to harvest and grow crops?
Yes.
We know that certain reagents are out there already in the fields. We know that certain pledge levels will have reagent plants that they can harvest.
Oh yeah.
So it was only a natural, you know, um, guess that that would become something that was going to get added into the game eventually.
Whether cows and chickens will make the initial release is the thing in question, and my guess is those will probably come after like farm animals, just because there's some extra stuff that goes into making those happen. But I mean, we're going to get them in eventually. It's not like we're going to ship version 1.0 and say we're live, and then I'll go to Hawaii for 6 months or anything like that. It's nothing's going to change once we go
Right, right.
live.
Once we
It's
go
just
live, you guys are still going to have updates and add-ons and additions as we go.
And one of
Um,
those things that I think that may not be super obvious to people is when we prioritize some things. One of the things we have to look at is how much pain will this cause people if we don't get it in until after live, and how much pain will it cause if we add it after live. So adding in new systems or changing up major guild elements or changing up how combat works once we're live is pretty painful because people have to go like try and respec their character and readjust all that stuff.
gotcha,
We
gotcha.
come in after live and add in, okay, guess what? In addition to crops, you can now have chickens. That doesn't cause anybody pain. That's just woo, that's celebration. That doesn't
Nice
require anybody to
add-on,
adjust.
correct.
So that is something that it will not be painful to add once we're live. So that'll probably wait.
Gotcha,
Is my
gotcha.
guess.
Now, guilds, real quick.
Hmm.
Do we plan a guild wipe coming up in this release? Do we know?
So we've had some requests for guild wipes, but we've also had some people request we don't. So I think we're for this release, we're just going to leave it up to the players. The guild leader can go wipe the guild as he sees fit. But yeah, I know there's some bloated guilds out there with lots of inactives and people that they may or may not want in there. You always get some of that riffraff that builds up on in any guild of who added this person, where did they
Yeah,
come
where did
from?
that guy come from? I didn't
Yep.
add him. Yeah, I see a bit of that every other day. Um, and then, of course, are there is there going to be any type of guild controls aside from what we see now? We know that there's talk of leaderboards for this,
Mhm.
that, the other thing. Are there going to be ways to maybe see when the last time a guild member logged in, et cetera, et cetera? And would that in any way be tied in with the leaderboard system or of the like?
So there's going to be ways. So guilds to us are incredibly important just because it's that community is what keeps people in a game. I mean, if you don't have
Absolutely,
the community,
absolutely.
yeah, then people, they just play it and then they quit. Community is what keeps people around for years and years. So improving on the guild stuff is definitely on the list. Having things like last active and even like who added them, so you can determine how some bad person got added. That type of stuff will probably make before live. The leaderboards might make our. I think leaderboards were in R20 and got bumped back to prioritize the player vendors and also the dynamic lot placement stuff.
Right.
So I think those that got pushed back in favor of those two just because we felt that was the
Now,
biggest. Leaderboards will be happening. We will have PvP, PvE, and also like social decoration type PvP leaderboards or non PvP leaderboards. But also on the PvP, I know there's some people who have concerns. We will make sure that there are ways that you can taking part in the PvP leaderboards. If you don't want to be on the leaderboards, either we'll let you do say I don't want to take part at
a
all and
little
not let
check
you in there.
mark. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, or have put your name up there but put unknown or
gotcha.
unnamed or something like that, so people can stay anonymous if they choose to.
And then, of course, with the guild wipe, we come to release. I'm assuming that at release that is going to be a full blown. Everybody starts from square one. Does that include your friends list, the guilds, all that stuff when we go to release? Do we know?
So your friends list, it's tough because we expect people. There's going to be a lot of people who will be changing names, changing characters, changing everything. So we probably will do a full wipe of every part of the data for going to live. I can't guarantee that though. There may be if we hear too many cries from people saying that don't clear my guild or whatever, then we may not. But right now, my expectation would be that we clear friends list, guild list, everything. Say fresh start, so everybody's on the same footing from day one.
See, I know Richard's a big fan of the friends list. He always asks everybody to
Oh yeah.
friend them, and I'm just curious how he feels about when we go live that he's going to have to do all these friends over.
Well, there'll probably be some changes coming to the friends list soon as well. Right now, the system that we have is it's great, it's convenient, it's easy, but it allows for the live game. It'll allow too much stalking of people. So, like, I
Right.
can add
Okay.
you, and I always know when you're online type stuff. It's like we will be
Yes.
adding more features so you can block people.
So you can go, oh, I don't want to be on that person's friends
Yeah.
list. Yeah.
And there will probably also be some things that only be available if you are mutual friends, which is like I've added you as a friend and you added me as a friend. Uh, but it'll probably end up being that when I add you as a friend, it'll say, allow, ignore, block, or whatever.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
but there'll be more features come online for that, so that people can control who can see when they're online. Because yeah, it'd be horrible if
Makes
hey, I'm in a
sense.
PvP guild and everybody in this other guild always knows to add every person in that PvP guild list.
Every time they come
Yeah, every
online,
time they
it's
log
like,
on, it's like
say,
guild
Joe Blow
manager.
just logged on. Let's go kill him. Yeah, exactly. And I thought that was a little weird originally because it's like, I can just keep adding everybody who walks by to my friends list, and there's nothing they can do about it. And
That's what Richard does.
I thought that was a little odd myself. But that's good to hear that people are on top of that there.
Yeah, we're
Um,
making it easy for now, just because we do want, it's a small enough community still at this point that there's not a big problem. But for
Gotcha.
live, it will be that it'll be some type of mutual handshake.
Is now gust ball, another big topic. We just recently got the gust ball, and
Mhm.
everybody's loving it. I hand them out to anybody who wants one. I go buy 20 at a time and just pass them out at events and stuff. Everybody's having a great time with it. There's a lot of speculation that there's been talk of a prefab field that you guys might put together, include up to and including uniforms and other stuff that we might be able to get, purchase, create in game. Um, anything on that that you can give us?
Uh, there will probably be something. There's been talk internally, and we keep talking about what we can do to make it possible for people to build their own little gust ball arenas. There's also been talks of adding it as a for the dynamic towns, making it a point of interest that players can add. So that's one of the things that the town owner can put down is they can put down a gust ball field or gust ball goals of some sort. But right now, I'm going to say that nothing is official. But yeah, we anytime players come up with some totally emergent activity like gust ball, we're always going to get behind it and do what we can to
I mean,
help
when I
reinforce it.
first heard of it, I was like, "Oh, this is too funny. You're gusting around an avatar." But and I don't think anybody expected it to catch on the way it did either, to where it is now. I mean, we've got weekly bouts. There's actually games going on tonight, and I fully see this going into full blown league play and everything else down the line.
Yeah, well, the little known fact that we actually, for a while, we called it a soccer ball, but it was actually a pine cone in game that used in game and was physics
I'm aware
based.
of the pine cone. Yes.
Yeah, so we keep talking about moving that back, but it would kind of break the gust ball mechanics. It's funny because we have the combat group that gets together and talks about things, and the first time I heard about gust ball was I mentioned a change I was going to be making to how gust works, and the first comment that like 3 or 4 people had was, "Wait, won't that break gust ball?" I'm like, "What? What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Right.
What's
Right.
gust
Is
ball?" So yeah, so now there's actually the times when it's like, "Oh, we can't change that because it would break gust
it'll
ball."
break gust ball. That is funny. So for those of you gust ball players out there, you heard it here. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that you don't know, and yeah, messing with the gust ball could break other things. Alrighty, that's most of it. We've got brewing. We spoke about that, and that again goes in with like the cows and the sheep and all that stuff.
Mhm.
We spoke about that, and then the hottest topic on the list here, of course, is the combat bar. And
Yeah,
I,
of
and
course.
I know you've been waiting for this one, because I'm sure you hear it from everybody and their dog. So let's start in. Where did the idea for the combat bar come from? Where did we conceive this? Where did you dream it up? Um, what can you give us
Uh,
on that?
so it's a long story, but I can. The idea was my idea.
We know.
Sorry for those who
We know.
dislike it still, but again, we continue to work on it. The goal was there were a lot of different things that were going into the decision for it. A lot of different requirements that really no other game system would satisfy appropriately. We also wanted to add in we needed a system that was lag friendly. That's always important for anything, and that actually the system is actually more lag friendly. There's less, it's fewer instant reaction type stuff. There's more dynamic stuff, and of course, I'm only talking about the dynamic bar aspect right now.
Right.
We of course have always had fixed bar in, which is why part of why I get frustrated when I hear people scream about it. It's like, well, just use a fixed bar. But we also know that the fixed bar is not competitive. It will be in R20, which I'll get into a little bit more.
Okay.
But some of the other requirements, we want to make it so many MMOs especially, but most RPGs, there's always like, okay, if you're going to play this type person, here is the exact build. You can go to a forum, you can find it, and if you don't use that, then you're going to be, everybody will laugh at you because there's really only 1 or 2 builds.
You're gonna be the
So it doesn't
first guy
offer
that
character
dies every
movement.
time you walk into a dungeon if you don't do it this way. Yeah.
Yeah, And so we needed it to be classless and let people play however they wanted to. If you want to play purely fighter in plate mail with a two-handed sword, go for it. If you want to be, some type of pure magic guy, go for it. If you want to be a hybrid, we wanted to leave it up to people in terms of how they played. We wanted to make it as open as possible. Uh, we also wanted to make it so when you advance, I mean, most games it's like you advance, and again, as I mentioned, it's like a number goes up, your calculations go up. We wanted to make sure that when you advanced in our game, it wasn't just a number going up, but it was more the breadth of the things you can do changed, which then plays into one of the other requirements, which is that we wanted to make sure that players could change their style, mid adventure if they want to. Hey, guess what? I was playing healer and a healer joined, so I'm going to switch to be more of a tanky type person. Uh, let's see.
Okay.
And then the other big things we want to make sure that there was a level of skill in it that would be take time to develop and take time to master that most others don't have. Uh, so that's how the initial system came about. If people remember, I don't remember what release it was in, maybe R8 or 10 or something like that. When we came out with the initial release, it was like you have a dynamic bar, deal with it, and everything deals out. You really have to pay attention. So obviously, that system satisfied all of the initial design requirements, but it didn't satisfy the hey, is this fun requirement.
Right, right.
Which is why there's a lot of things just in terms of how much it forces you to take your eyes off the screen is probably the
Well,
biggest
and
complaint.
that's one of the biggest complaints.
Mhm.
And of course, you pretty much answered the next couple of questions that were in this group here. Of course, what made you choose that route, and you've pretty much
Yep.
given us that. Um, Now, again, with the complaints about taking your eyes off and all that stuff,
Mhm.
I've constantly heard, try it. Try it, try it, try it. We can always change it. And of course, the burning question in everybody's mind is that still a possibility, or are we stuck with the combat system bar the way it
Uh,
is?
so the combat system kind of was put on hold between about R8, R12, and 18. In R18, I made it a top priority that we were going to fix the
Correct.
combat system, even if that means scrapping everything. Uh, and I got together a group of guys in game that pretty much anybody who plays the game probably knows a lot of their names. That are just some of the most constructive and also
The
for a
guys in the
lot of them the
combat
most
scrum.
yeah, the guys who are in
Yes.
combat scrum now, but a lot of them are the most critical of the combat system, who are maybe they're hardcore Ultima Online players or they were hardcore PvP guys. Very critical, but also constructive guys. I continue to add people occasionally to the combat scrum, but the group we have in there has been immensely helpful.
Now, I
Uh,
know most of these guys personally who are in it, and I hear a lot of the feedback. One of the things, and again, this is on my end, and I hear it from a lot of other people, is the randomness. Okay.
okay.
The randomness, and of course, we can go back and forth. You can use your lock deck and not have the randomness. Like if I'm sitting there and I'm waiting for a heal, I'm waiting for a random card, well, you can lock one. Okay. But if I lock it, I get penalized over twice the amount.
So
And there's a big controversy over, why don't we just have a whole lock deck? Why do we have a random deck? Why do we get penalized?
so based on the big thing I try to do with the combat scrum guys, wherever possible, is I try to get them to focus on tell me what the problems are. Don't tell me the solutions, and let us try to come up with solutions. Because like two solutions that sound very similar, one may take 2 hours to implement, and one may take two
Right.
months to
As I've
implement.
been following discussions on that, and while you guys are doing it, sometimes there's stuff that you can just tweak right on the fly
Yeah.
and go, okay, go try this, guys. Tell me how that works.
So one of the things that will be great about R20 is for R18 and 19, we put a lot of big combat changes in, but we couldn't make any of the really big combat changes because we didn't wipe.
Gotcha. Which is why we have a wipe
So
coming up.
that's one of the nice things for the wipe is now that we have a wipe coming up, we're going to be making a lot of really big changes to how things work, uh, which is to try to open up the goal after talking to both combat scrum guys, guys in the forum, guys on private chat, people in person at shows and other things. The route that is going to be taken going forward is you can play either the lock deck or the dynamic deck, or you can play any combination. We're going to be doing away with a number of the focus skills, including the one that limits how many locked skills you can have. So you'll be able to, if
Interesting.
you want to lock 8 and leave 2 dealing, you can. We're also doing away with the skill that is how many slots you have available. So everybody will always have 10. You won't have to pay for
So
that.
nobody's got to spend points there. Everybody's going to
Yep.
start off on a fair and
Everybody will start
even
with 10.
10 tiles available to them. Nice.
Uh, so another big one is, so like I mentioned, you get, if you want to, you could lock 8, leave 2 dealt, because there's still some reasons for dealt for those people who just want to dabble in that type of stuff, which is you will now be able to make combos with by taking lock cards and putting them onto dealt cards. So you may
Now,
just keep the 2 up that are like these 2 slots get filled with cards that make combos with my things that I have locked. So you can focus totally on combat, and then when you have a little more time, if you want, you can go and make a locked one. But it's not something that you need to look away from your keyboard.
now that was another thing, as a lot of people I spoke to had to say, was that
Mm-hmm.
the penalty, of course, for using a lock deck was a higher focus cost, but even more
Yeah.
so was not being able to combo. Now,
Yep.
if I was able to take, and again, this is a personal example because I use it all the time, but even if we had to pay, say, and come halfway in between the cost of a random and a cost of a lock deck, I wouldn't have such a beef with it, or most of the other people as well, um, if we could combo a lock deck. And I don't know if
So
you guys have heard that as much, or um,
we've heard that suggestion, but it trivializes the combo to the point that it's just not challenging. There's no actual skill involved in it anymore. Uh, it also makes it so we can make combos for those things, but then we have to make the combos just a tiny bit powerful, more powerful than the others, just because it becomes so easy.
right, right.
But again, that's why we're going to allow locked cards will be able to be used on dealt cards. So if again, the example, like players might have like 7 or 8 cards locked, and then just have like 3 or 4 that come up, so they can watch for those combos coming up.
Right, right.
I should point out that the opposite is not the case. You can't take a dynamic card onto a locked card, because there's too many exploits in that in terms of like, oh, I'm just going to have my whole bar filled up with 8
Understood.
combos ready to go that I just one after the other.
Now, of
Some
course,
other stuff is the focus penalty will be going away. Uh, the other bigger issue is the cooldown time, which is when you use an ability, how long it takes it until you can use it again.
now a lot of
So,
people I've spoken to don't really have a big problem with cooldown times, with um, fails, with being
mhm,
fizzled, being interrupted, et cetera, et cetera. The most common complaint was when I need my heal spell, if I don't have it locked, it's not there.
yeah,
And as you're explaining to me, I realize that you guys get an earful of it every day, and
mhm.
this is coming. It's being fixed. It's being worked on, and
We're making it much more. So what we don't want to do is throw away the dealt system, because there are, believe it or not, a lot of people who like it, and it does open up a lot more possibilities and a lot more skill level type things. A couple of the guys in the combat scrum actually live and die by that. They want they want more, 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 but a lot of them are so much better players than me and so much faster fingers and
well, yeah,
clickers.
I've had this debate with some of my guild mates. Is I'm a strictly mostly mouse player.
Hmm.
I spend half my time looking at the combat bar. I ain't got time to look at my keyboard and the combat bar and my health bar.
Hmm.
Speaking of the health bar is going to become movable. Are we going to see that in 20? Do we know?
I don't know if that's going to be in 20. We actually there's been some of the UI work got backed up a little bit because one of our team members, Wizard Smoke, actually finally got married.
He was on his
Uh,
honeymoon. We
he was
understand.
on
We
his
know that.
honeymoon. So we've got a little bit of a backup in a lot of the UI stuff, and it's something that other people could take on, but we just want to leave it for him just because it's an optimal situation as he does it, and he'll get it done in half the time with somebody else.
And then my personal peeve, and I didn't put this in there,
Mhm.
but now that we're on it, um, the chat system. When you're chatting, and if you forget to hit that enter bar, it's probably happened to you, everybody else. A million windows pop up.
Yeah, as you start typing other keys.
Right now, I've
Uh,
suggested it in the forums, and I've got zero feedback. I think I got one response.
mhm.
And the question was, How hard would it be to just make a right click to make any window disappear off your screen instead of having to hunt for the little X up there in the corner?
Uh,
Food for thought.
I don't think that would be that tough. I mean, the other thing is the system of just making it so that what Richard actually wants, and actually I think we have it in there, but as an optional mode, is that we refer to as Richard mode internally, but just that anything you type goes straight into chat. It's like chat is the default for everything.
Right, right.
If you want to use like pull up inventory, it's Control I instead of I. And if you want to go into combat mode, it's Control Z. Moving everything to be control keys, and then all typing goes straight to the chat.
I think
I
people would
forget if we
really
have that in
be
there
on
because
board with
I
that.
don't use it,
Yeah.
but it's something that Richard's been demanding for
I,
quite a while. And
I know he's a very
management's
loud
been
proponent
able
of
to
that
avoid
chat
eye
system.
contact with him for long enough, so it's not in there yet. But,
Now, also, I know he
yeah,
has a.
to make stuff go away, it doesn't. I don't think it would be that hard. I'm trying to think what right-click interfaces we have in those windows right now. I know that there's a few things that have right-click interfaces, but I think for most windows, yeah, that'd be a not a trivial change, but hours to a day type change.
It's
So,
just, it's one of them things that I've noticed. I've seen
and
in several
I
other
sorry,
games.
I didn't see your comment in the forums on that stuff. I try to watch the forums, but as you probably know, it's a pretty much a full-time job if you want to go read
Yes,
everything in the
yes.
forums. So I do count on some people to filter for me and give me the good stuff.
And, I just, again, as I'm going through the game on my daily basis, I'm going,
Oh, I don't hear anything.
you there?
Let's see. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can't hear you. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, it might be me.
You want to see if people in the fan stands can hear you?
Can everybody hear me out there?
You know what? I think I was hitting keys. Maybe I hit the mute key on here.
Is everybody's telling me they can hear me? It
There
must
we
have
go.
been you. Yeah,
I got it.
they said Chris must have hit the mute key.
I was being an idiot, and when I was talking to people, telling them about how you hit control whatever, I actually hit
Hit
control whatever,
control. Gotcha.
and turned off my audio.
I
So
was gonna
there you
say
go.
is I know Richard's a big fan of making the chat system a lot more functional, and I've actually heard about the Richard system.
Hmm.
There's something about shift and hitting a capital letter, which will always go to your chat.
Yeah,
Um, and there's another setting I've been told you can play with, but I haven't gotten that deep into it myself. But I have heard about Richard Mode, and again, I've gone through the game, gone through the game, gone through the game, and I go, I can't think of anything I use my right mouse button for in this game. You know, that would preempt us from using it to close any given window on the screen. You
yeah.
know,
I think you're right. For most things, it would not be a big deal. There's a few things that do have right-click elements in them. An inventory type stuff is one of those. Right click on things. But yeah, I don't see why we couldn't add it for, hey, if I right click in a space that isn't receiving the right mouse button, then close it.
I can't tell you how many times I've hit that, and all of a sudden my screen's full of stuff, and I can't see anything anybody's doing in the game. And especially if I was just going to say, watch that mage behind you. All of a sudden I got 20 boxes on my screen, and I got to go, oh man, where's the X on the corner?
Yeah, no, I've done it before too. The my usual thing is combat starts and I type ZZZZZ to chat as I try to. Why
Yeah,
am I not drawing my weapon? God crap! And then it's easier to just hit enter and send the message than it is to backspace over it. So,
that's funny. Alrighty.
in terms of combat stuff, some of the other things I mentioned, R20 will basically be we're going to open up the locked bar and make that something that's fairly balanced for people. But there's going to be some other stuff too. In R19, one of the things we added was the free combat mode. I'm not even sure how many people actually tried it out, but that is the turn off auto attack, and you move to more of a free combat system where you
I
hit the things in front of you.
I knew you guys put it in there, and
Hmm.
I'd been running around out there tapping my mouse button. Nobody told us you had to go into the settings and turn that off. I says, I know they told us they put it in. I says, and every time I try and swing at something, nothing happens. And I just found this out like 2 days ago. Somebody says, oh, you got to go in your settings and turn it off. I'm going, well, they could have told us that.
For the next release, we'll probably move that to be the default that it's on rather than off. Uh, since we're going to be wiping everybody, and we're
Gotcha.
going to put a few more improvements into that. There was some animation, a few animation issues that were just bugs. I think pole arms were really the ones that had the problem that your character kind of stands at an angle, which is, guess what? That's how people actually stand when they're fighting with sword,
Right,
shield,
right.
whatever. Is you don't stand perfectly shoulder to shoulder with the guy. You stand at an angle, but that can be a little confusing as to which way you're facing if you aren't paying attention. And then pole arms, especially when you attack, instead of them attacking the area that's in front of you, they're attacking like off to the right or something like that. Uh,
Gotcha. If you're
so
right-handed, you're off to the right. If you're left-handed, you're off to the
yeah,
left.
but yeah, so we'll be cleaning up that stuff so the animations match up more closely with the space in front of you. We're also going to switch, give some more hints about what things are actually within your front arc.
Nice,
Also, all
nice.
the combat maneuvers, so like thrust and double slash and all those type melee type things are going to move to use that system as well. Right now, those are still kind of whoever you have targeted, who's you get hit, and that can actually be a little bit annoying. Uh, and actually, that may I forget if that made it in for R19. That may already be in there for R19. But anyways, most everything except for ranged attacks will be moving to that free attack system,
Nice,
and
nice.
we'll make it the default. And the hope is that as we continue to refine it, that enough people will prefer it that we can just pull auto attack. Is my little dream, anyways. And
I've
just
played with
focus on the
auto
free
attack.
attack.
Not a fan because you always have to make sure it's toggled again. Now I'm
Yep.
getting from in the chat here. Somebody goes, "All you got to do is hit escape and it closes all those windows." And this is the first I'm hearing that. I did
That's
not know that.
true story.
And again, this is how we learn. So I'll have to test that theory out, and if I do, then I'll retract the "Can we add a right click?" um, and then for the most part, I think that about covers everything there.
Okay. You got anything out of
Guild
the
controls.
chat windows?
I've got a bunch of people over here. Of course, the one of the first and earliest questions came from Abydos, and
Hmm.
Abydos wants to know about full player looting. And can we touch on that? Is that going out of bounds?
I think about 4 months ago we made a promise that I'd put a big PvP post up, and it was postponed primarily due to worrying about feature creep and what things would make version 1.0. I think we'll probably go ahead and release some information on that soon, and just make sure that people know that these are the plans for PvP plans, especially in terms of special PvP modes where it's not just I kill you, you kill me, and it's pointless.
Right,
Actually
right.
adding some more meaning to that, but making sure when we announce it to people that we will also be these are what we will be doing. It will be during episode one, but it will probably be after launch for episode one. It will probably be after live, just because the cooler PvP elements probably are not going to make live. But again, as I've said repeatedly, and Star raises his eyebrows at me a little bit when I say it in our hangouts. As I've seen it, all live is when we say this is the last time we're going to wipe your character. We're going to continue development, you know, forever on things, and at some point we're going to start slowing down development a little bit, not fully, so that we can focus on episode 2 and the next big storyline. Uh, but yeah, so there will be some PvP stuff that will come up that we'll be able to talk about really soon. That will make it, but not for release day, post release.
I'm just looking through the log here before we. I got Blake Blackstone asking,
Mm-hmm.
can we get a guild messaging system? I'm thinking more of like an officer can create a message that
I
all
like
the
a
guild
message for the day.
members, because we know we have guild chat already,
Mm-hmm.
and that's been something that I've heard from other people. Um, I know, of course, broadcasting in general, we can't have, because of spamming the system and all that stuff, but something like, a player email in game, player group messaging, anything like that being thought about.
Uh, so the messaging stuff, a lot of that, I mean, we're going to try to keep it as immersive as possible. We will probably at some point have a mail system uh, that will most likely make use of the same system that the books use right now, except it'll just be we'll have a one sheet of paper type messaging system. It'll be a simple. I don't think there's a plan right now, at least not for episode one, to have the like a WoW style. I'm going to email you a package and here's a bunch of gold and a couple items type thing, where you
Right.
just send that and it appears in somebody's or inbox. Uh, exactly how that's going to work, I don't think we've decided. We've got a bunch of different ideas on how it'll work, though, in terms of, it's not its own special interface. It's really more like you can go to the post office, you'll get a notification when there's something there, and you can go to the bank or the post office and pick up your package there, which your package will really just be a piece of paper that somebody sent you.
Right. Now, there's a quest coming in that's got to do with mail delivery. I don't know if that's actually in. I haven't explored that yet. Where you're
Mm-hmm.
going to go around to all the, what's the word I'm looking for? Not the town criers, but
The automatons,
the
the
automatons.
robots.
Yes, the quest givers, the hat quest guys. There's a name for it. I'm just at a loss for the word right now.
Yeah, I forget to. I just call them
And
automatons.
then while we were on that topic, something else that I've heard, I believe I've heard Richard and Star both mention that you guys have actually looked into voice communication within the game. Is there
Yeah.
any credence to that? Do we have any information that we can share with the folks out there?
Uh, before live, we will have some type of system set up. Our hope is to have a system set up so there will be in-game chat. The questions are in other games where they've tried to make these in-game systems and force, like, okay, well, you can talk, but you can only talk to people in your party. It ends up just forcing people to use outside systems, uh, so that they can do things like I want to talk to everyone in this group and everyone in this other group and everyone in this other group, but the
Right.
game doesn't let me do that. How do we make that happen? So we'll probably use an external system that will have in-game interfaces and in-game ways to make some things work. But we're very likely going to have something live. Uh, I don't want to put a release on it.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I don't, I don't want to get lawyered, but not too soon. This is actually, people can thank good guy Materios for pushing this, and a few others.
Everybody loves Materio. He's done some great work already for the game, especially with his app.
Absolutely.
And I use it all the time. I know a lot of other people use it. It's a really great extension to
Mm-hmm.
the game when you're not able to be in game. And that's great news to hear that we're going to have, or at least you guys are still exploring to have the voice.
Yeah.
Again, I know that I have right now, well, I just closed it for the interview, but I usually keep 3 to 5 TeamSpeak chat clients open. I got a Mumble open, I got Skype open, I've got several different, so I can keep in touch, like you were saying, with everybody else.
Yeah.
It would be nice to see some kind of system like that where, in fact, you can go, hey, I want to talk to all the first folks from Bear Tavern and click on a link and speak to anybody who might be there.
Yeah.
Be some cool stuff. Now, um, like you said, you don't want to promise anything, and I'm going to just touch on this. Release dates. We know that there is no firm release date for the reason being that nobody there wants to make promises until we have a nice, clean, finished product, and the community is behind everybody on that. We would rather wait, you know, and get it done right than have a whole bunch of fixes that need to be patched later on down the line and all
Yeah.
that. Um, how is the end of the year release date looking from the design standpoint?
Uh,
Without delving too crazy and deep into it.
so my expectation is, well, one, that Star will yell at me if I say anything, but my
Don't lawyer
personal
me,
guess is
bro.
we'll probably slip that a little bit, just because we're having so many troubles hiring content level builders to finish out some of the main storyline. The main storyline is kind of one of those things we want to make sure and get that to
Nailed
a point
down.
where there's a good amount to play in there. Even if it's not 100% of the storyline, we have to keep adding the content episodically. Where just every release, it's like, okay, well, you made to this point in the quest, and now there's like, here's 10 more steps to the next part of the story. Uh, but a lot of it depends on how we do with that type of, whether we do go with that. Do we want to have 100% of the story done day one so we release it? Or do we want to have good chunks of the story identified and broken out? Because we've already identified multiple chunks.
Right, right.
So I can't commit to anything as whether or not we'll make it by the end of the year.
Understandable, understandable.
Most we should be very near 100% feature complete by the end of the year.
Now, again, going back to what you touched on with being able to have the players craft their own towns there.
Mhm.
How does that coincide with the stretch goal for um, flexible placement? Is that going to be part of that so that when a player places a house, is that going to supersede the stretch goal? Is the super stretch goal still going to be there? How's that going to come into play, if I might ask?
Uh, so the flexible placement of houses is a little more likely due to the dynamic city stuff because one of the things we had to solve for the dynamic city placement is making pathfinding so we can rebuild chunks on the fly of pathfinding rather than having baked out. One of the problems we had before the flexible placement was how do we handle, like you've got pets, how do we
Right.
handle pets in this thing if you can move it around? We don't have pre-baked pathfinding. Now we can, as of just in the last week or so, we can dynamically bake that out. When you put down a house, instead of it being a pre-baked chunk, you know,
Nice,
we
nice.
generate the when you change something, it's generated then, so your pets can still get in and out. I expect there to be some more bugs coming up with that, but that was needed for the dynamic town decoration type stuff. So when you place a lot, we can handle the pathfinding for it accordingly, so that your pets don't get just not be
Just
able to
stuck
move around.
someplace. Right, right, right.
Yeah, always stuck at your front door is a lot of what would happen, or your front gate. But that has opened up some other options in terms of the dynamic flexible house placement. So not promising anything, but it's more
Right.
likely now.
Well, I was going to say, I would think, with the advent of something like that coming in, that would help, of course, speed up towns, speed up a half dozen other systems that have been bogging you
Okay.
guys down over there. And I'm a firm believer if given the choice, I'm going to want to say, just let me take care of it and I'll design it from my own, and don't worry yourselves. Go focus on fishing so that Winfield can be happy. Alrighty.
So you got any questions Twitch?
I'm just coming through here, looking to see anything else. I've got Drake Adis says we need more emotes. He says I need to roar every once in a while. I've seen several about emotes. A yell command. People are wondering if maybe a yell command would come in so that you could yell further
Mhm.
down. Uh,
Yeah, on emotes, somewhat related topic. I'm trying to remember what the status of emote teaching was.
that should be
So
coming out
maybe
in 20,
people,
as far as I
I,
understood.
I think it's 20. I'm not sure if it's one of the ones that we bumped a couple things to get the dynamic city building in
Placement
because
in.
that
And I
and
don't think anybody's going to argue with you folks for that
yeah,
one.
and that's again we have to look at it as what things need to be done early and are going to need lots of testing. The emote teaching stuff is not going to require that much testing. I know everybody wants it and it's one of those cool features, cool and unique features, but the dynamic city building is one of those where not only does it unblock a ton of stuff, but it's going to have way more debugging and more time from you guys. Probably a couple releases of you guys breaking it in a dozen different ways. But yeah, so the emote teaching should be coming online within the next two releases. I don't know if it's an R20 or not. I don't have the
Nice.
schedule in front of me. But yeah, that'll expand some of the emote stuff. I think we'll probably get some more emotes in for that, but I'm not sure how many are on the schedule. We've got all the emotes that people get with their pledges, and a lot of those are teachable. And for those who don't know what that means, it means that you won't be able to do every emote. Some of the emotes you have to wait until someone has
Someone
taught you
teaches
how to
it
do.
to you. And that's another thing I really look forward to. I thought it was a great concept.
Yep.
Okay, coming back to here, I got a couple more questions, and I already think I know the answer to one of them. But NV Code Gaming wants to know if there's any plans on speeding up PvP.
Yeah, I mean PvP right now. There's going to be a lot of nerfing to healing. I think I mentioned earlier that there's going to be a pass where actually up until now creatures use 100% the same logic, and they just have a strength, a level, and a dex, and they go through all the same character math, all the same combat math that players do. For R20, maybe definitely down the line though, we're going to be splitting that out so that the combat math for players is different, so that level is less important, stats are less important, and that it's on a more balanced playing field, even if someone is 40 levels higher than you.
Right, right.
Right now, as I know, like Themo Lock probably at level 20 could kill me at level 100.
Yes.
So I know there's Yeah, I'm sure you've experienced that type.
Themo's not a happy camper right now because he can't get into game. He's got computer problems.
Oh,
Yeah, so we feel for you, Themo. We miss you and your abs out there. I don't know if you know about the running joke with Themo and his abs, but it is an in-game joke. We have coming from, and I think I know this, Fluorotube. Could you ask him about unnerfing the blink spell? And I think we all know the answer to
uh,
that.
it, by unnerfing, he means letting the exploits continue.
Exactly. That's
No,
what I'm thinking. You know,
but that is also one of those things where we put it in. We knew there would be some exploits. We didn't know what they would be, and
I had a lot of
there,
fun with that early on.
yeah, there's still some things that people are able to exploit it right now. We've just made it much harder, but yeah, there's still some crazy exploits with Blink where you can still get on top of like go into the dungeon and get on top of the dungeon outside of it that we have not been able to reproduce internally. We're trying to figure out how to reproduce
Oh,
those
I used to do that
those
all the
issues.
time. I used to be able to get on top of the dungeon. I would fall from the dungeon for like 5 minutes in the thin air into the void. And then, of course, you would just land back in the dungeon. I might even be able to show you a couple of videos of that, but that was from several releases ago. I don't know. I haven't
Oh
tried
yeah,
it
no,
since
I
then.
know exactly. I think I'm the one that put in the code for handling if players. There's just a plane that when players get below a certain level, like maybe 5 kilometers down or something, maybe it's 1 kilometer down. But once they get to that level of falling, then they just get teleported back to the start point. Is kind of the fallback.
Yeah,
That obviously should never happen.
and the other odd thing was when you fell like that, you can actually see the physical dungeon layout in the void,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no,
which was
I've seen
quite interesting.
screenshots. Well, that's the other thing is when I put in the sewers, initially somebody said that, oh, well, they were trivial because all I did was go into and blink on top of the roof and then I can see all the secret passages.
Ooh, hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, so
As
they immediately went on top of the sewers
yeah,
went around. But yeah, obviously we want to fix that stuff and we can't leave those type exploits in. Uh, we want to do more with Blink. We've already got the tech there though, and I mean I'd love to be able to make Blink something you could use even greater distances, and would not be surprised to see people using it as a travel mechanism, just as a faster way to run around, especially with some of the bigger towns coming in.
I've seen it used as a mechanism to circumvent doors in dungeons. I've seen it used to go from point A to point B. I've seen it used for quite a few things when it was being exploited. So yeah, I definitely can relate to what y'all saying there. Now I've got another question. It says my daughter is asking about advanced character creation, but there's no. Can you go ahead and expand on that there, Drake? And then from G Wiz, we're going to field just one or two more here because I know you got to get back to work. I got a few things to do.
Mhm.
Deed lots are expensive to buy, and from the add-on store, will deeds and homes be transferable between future episodes? I think we already know the answer to that, but you want to field that anyway?
Yeah, I mean, when the future episodes come along, maybe people aren't quite clear on how that's going to work. It's going to be right now. There's the continent that people know and have probably seen screenshots of. There's just going to be when episode 2 comes out. There's going to be a second continent that will open up a whole another area that's the size of episode 1. It's the current plan. And actually, I think by the time it gets to episode 5, the continent, I forget how much bigger it is, but it's 4 or 8 times the size of what it is right now.
Wow. Okay.
But that means it's not going to be. It's not like episode 2 is going to come out and you have to delete your character and start over to play episode 2. Episode 2 will be the continuation of episode 1, where story will continue, cities will continue. There will probably be some migration between areas. Is like, okay, well, there's going to be some new cities on the new continent, and people are going to want to migrate over there. But one of the things we have not determined yet, we're going to wait and see how our crazy development process goes, and that we do development very differently from other people. Uh, did you freeze up? Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, sorry. It looked like you were frozen on my screen.
Yeah, it may
I just
happen.
kicked a cable under my desk. I thought it might have broken
Uh
it.
huh. Let's not give those
But yeah,
internet gremlins any chances here.
we'll see how our crazy development process goes. But the one of the questions is how when we get to episode 1. Okay, as I mentioned, we're going to continue expanding content during episode one. It's not going to be one thing, but we'll probably slow the content production to start on episode two, continue adding features and a little bit of content. But for episode two, how are we going to reveal this to people? I don't think we want to just have like, oh, the whole continent opens up at once. We need to have a
Gotcha.
way to test it. So that
Gotcha.
may be when we actually split and have more of a QA server and like, oh, that stuff only exists on the QA server. If you want to go see anything from episode two, you need to go to the QA server.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
But we'll see when we get a little bit closer to it.
Alrighty. Okay, and then of course the final question on the actual list
Mm-hmm.
is what does the office look like on release days? Uh,
Uh, so release days are actually usually pretty calm. If there's only been a couple of releases where we were running around like chickens with our head cut off on release day. It's usually the week leading up to release. In fact, we've just gotten into now the tradition is every Monday we order pizza. Every Tuesday we order chicken. There's a good fried chicken place around here called Lucy's Fried Chicken that we order. And then every Wednesday is barbecue, just because we know that the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before the Thursday release are always, I
Hectic.
mean, yeah,
Yeah.
that's 12-hour plus days. Our company policy is we've got a lot of people, probably half the people in the company or more have kids, including myself and Star and most of the programmers and artists. So we're pretty loose on overtime in terms of we almost never require overtime.
Gotcha.
We leave it up to players, but we've got a lot of responsible guys here who are passionate about the game, as you might expect working here, who end up putting in a lot of overtime, especially that week before. There's been times, actually, like one and only was, I'll throw him out as an example, is Richard's mentioned a lot of hangouts that I work crazy hours, and I used to work pretty much every day from before 7 till after 7, every day of the week. But since having a kid, I've toned it down a little bit. But I think last release for the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every day I came in at 7, and one and only was here when I got here at 7 o'clock in the morning and had been here for a while. And then I would leave at 7, and one
And
and only would still be here.
still be at his desk working
And
on it.
sometimes, so yeah, so I mean, there's a few of the guys up here who work 15, 16 hours a day, every day,
Nice,
uh,
nice.
leading up to the release. So, but yeah, on release day, if everything goes well, we pretty much are all just sitting around with our feet kicked up. That's not really true because on release day, the
I
other
was
thing we
gonna
do is
say, I know
we,
I know my partner in crime, Jack Frost, has stopped by a couple times down there to deliver beer to you guys on release day. And
yeah,
Star has asked that he not come on release day anymore. If anything, come the night before, so it's not too crazy when.
yeah,
And of course, he doesn't want everybody sucking down the cold ones trying to fix bugs on the release day. Of course.
yeah. So, and really, as anybody who's watched the game and paid attention to when we patch and what patches we do knows, the Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday leading up to it is we're trying to get together our first build, and then we immediately get everybody into the game and see what type of crazy stuff goes wrong. As I mentioned before, we have a log server that tracks errors for us, and
Correct. Correct.
that's generally my release day thing. Is I'll be myself and a
Excuse
few
me.
other programmers will be in the logs, sitting there watching to see what exceptions are coming up, trying to track down is this common, how often does it occur, where does it occur, what can we do to guard against it, so we can get our first patch out. And our first patch is usually a let's fix all those crazy exceptions and problems that are, you know,
Causing
everywhere,
problems. Yeah.
and try to get a patch out. Usually, a first patch come out Thursday night, but if not Thursday night, then Friday morning. So usually we'll do Thursday and Friday, or also let's patch, fix everything we can before the weekend, so we have a clean weekend.
Gotcha.
And then sometimes it'll bleed over into the next week. I think 2 releases. R17, I think, was the release where it was really bad, where we spent a week leading up to it, and then we patched for the whole next week. We were patching all the way until the Friday of the next week, which means we lost a week off of R19. So,
Just running up and fixing patches. Yeah.
yep.
Alrighty. Okay, I think that about covers most of it. Anything that you'd like to add that we haven't covered? I know you guys got the postmortem tomorrow, so I'm sure we're going to get some more information coming out then.
Oh yeah.
The Friday, of course, update. We'll get more information on Friday, so always a constant flow of information coming out of Portalarium's offices for us.
Yep. We always try to make sure That's one thing I think we are do better than most, if not everybody else out there, especially in like the crowd-funded field. Is not only do we are we super open with people about things, not afraid to change things after the fact if we feel we screwed up or things need adjusting. But just that we also every month we try and get a release out there. We never want this to be one of these where there's like 6 months of secrecy and you don't know what's going on and nothing shows.
Exactly, exactly. And I think you
But
guys have done one heck of a job in keeping that the lines of communications open
yeah, and
with that.
that's yeah. Mostly just want to thank all the fans. I know it sounds like a broken record, but thank all the fans. There's special thanks to a lot of those guys out there, especially in the combat scrum, who have been incredibly constructive and helpful, uh, both in identifying what things need to be fixed, and then also in a few occasions coming up with the fix for it themselves and us getting it in. So, but to everybody, especially all the community leader type guys out there who are always constructive and helpful, thanks a ton, and it'll keep getting better. That's all we
All
can promise
righty.
every release is we keep getting better.
And final question: does Chris love the fans? I think he just said that.
I do love the fans. That's anytime when I went to PAX last year, that was one of the nice things. PAX Prime in Seattle was we had about a dozen different fans come by and sit and talk. That's pretty much what I did all PAX long was talk to the fans. So I mean, I enjoy talking to them and chat face to face. A few of them have come by to buy us beers or like Jack Frost bringing us beers and hanging out for a little while. And I mean, it's compared to what you see on other parts of the internet, our fan base is amazing
I
and
tell
also
you,
more mature.
the
And
community here is so awesome, and I didn't mean to cut you there, but the
yeah,
community again, I can't say enough about the community. Um, just happy to be a major part of the community here. Um, and just again, the a lot of people don't realize that to be able to contact you, to be able to contact Star or Richard, you guys actually come into the game and spend time and like with the combat scrum, you actually
mhm,
spend a lot of that time getting that direct feedback instead of like you said, sitting behind the scenes for 6 months in secret and then dropping
yeah.
something on players. Uh, Totally unseen or unheard of for the most part at this point in the game, and I think the community makes it even better. That allows you guys the freedom to come in and talk to them just because of what they do and how they are. Um,
And yeah, and hopefully people realize that we're human. We have great plans, we have great ideas, but sometimes great ideas. I think Richard's thing he always says is all battle plans fall apart on confrontation with the enemy, something to that effect. And we've seen that on a number of systems. I think combat's one of those where we came up with a list of here's a goals for it, and we hit all those goals, but again missed on the fun part because that's still the tough part. So,
Gotcha,
but
gotcha.
hopefully people can see that with the just how willing we are to go back and say, yep, that's not fun yet. We need to keep working on it. That's combat. I think R20 will be another big step forward. I think R18 with the way we change it, you can stack your decks, and then R19 with the free attack. R20 will have a lot more stuff in it, just thanks to the fact that we get to do wipe and we can just go all out and change up skills and change around things
Well,
to make
I'm
things.
thinking we're going to hear a lot of change stories if most of this comes out. And again, we'll have to wait and see when it hits here in a
Mhm.
couple weeks. But on that note, we're going to go ahead and close things up here, folks. I'd like to thank all our viewers out there for watching today and submitting questions. Of course, I got a like testing 1, 2, 3. I got to thank Chris for agreeing to the interview and coming to join us today. We're going to go ahead
Pleasure.
and wrap this up. Chris, if you just sit there for a second, let me end the stream and I will get with you in just a moment here.
Okay.
This is Laz. We're going to wrap up this interview here. We'll catch you next time. Stay tuned to NBNN for more news, information, sports, game shows, and random craziness going on here in Shroud of the Avatar. And we'll see y'all soon. Thanks for watching.